Hello, friends, and welcome to the third Boxers and Briefs podcast with your boy, Abid. First of all, thanks to everyone that's been giving me notes and comments. It's been super helpful. Hopefully, the podcast is improving. Hopefully, you like the way it's going. Today's episode is going to be shorter, mostly because there's not as much to talk about, but also because I've gotten some notes that it's a bit too long. So, like I said last week, the podcast is going to be really fluid, so we're going to see how it goes. But yeah, no, it's going to be a shorter one today. We're going to do some fight reviews, so we're going to look into some of the action that happened last Saturday. We're also going to look into some of the upcoming fights. Some interesting fights have been announced. It's nothing major this week, like everything else has been really, it's been known for a while. So, not much to touch upon there. This week's boxing deep dive, we're going to be looking into Ring Magazine's top 10 pound for pound fighters. So, I'm just going to give you like a quick bio of each of the fighters. What makes them pound for pound? Should be interesting. I don't know. Lastly, we're gonna hit you with a new segment today called Abid's Unpopular Opinions, where I tell you an opinion that I hold very dear to my heart, but most people disagree with me. So, we'll see how you like that one. I really want to do those a lot more just because I do tend to have a lot of opinions that people disagree with, and I really do want to have a conversation, like in terms of specifically these opinions. Let me know if you like that segment, and we'll see how it goes from there. So, just this section is probably going to be a bit quick. Upcoming fights. There's one major one I want to talk about in boxing and one major one I want to talk about in MMA. So the one in boxing is in bantamweight or super flyweight. So that's 115 pounds. It's Sirisaket Sorong versus Juan Francisco Estrada 2. Rematch clearly. Their first fight was a fight of the year candidate. It was a real barn burner. I got to watch it on YouTube. I couldn't watch it live, but wow, what a fight! So the 115 pound weight class really got put on the map because of Chocolatito, who fought both of these guys. And after Rongvisai beat him, the weight classes really opened up. So there's a lot of interesting matchups, and this is definitely one of the more interesting ones. Estrada moved up. He carried up his power. He's great. Rongvisai is huge for that weight class. Underrated skills. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight. I'm probably gonna watch this one live. I'm gonna at least try to. It's gonna be a good one, and I recommend you put it on your calendar. So I know I'm a bit more hardcore than most people, and most people don't really care about fights below 135 pounds. Like even then, it's a bit of a stretch. I assume most people stop being interested below 147. But 115 pounds, man, like don't sleep on that division. It's a great division. A lot of good fights. This will definitely be a great one. The second fight I wanted to talk about is in MMA. You have the rematch, and this is a rematch that I've really wanted for a long time, between Yoel, Soldier of God Romero versus Jacare Souza. I watched their first fight live. It was actually my first MMA event that I ever watched. They were on the undercard. It was a great fight. I personally thought Jacare edged it. I know it was my first fight, but like I watched it again. I still think Jacare edged it. He's not that lucky when it comes to close decisions. So, I'm excited for them to do it again just because Romero's been in some wars. Jacare is on the mend, but he's had a good win. I think it's a bit of a crossroads fight just because both guys are getting up there in age. Romero much more than Souza, but I think it's a bit of a crossroads fight because whoever wins this is probably gonna fight either the winner of Gastelum versus Stylebender, or might fight for the title by the end of the year. Who knows? It's a good fight. I think it'll be a really good one. They're both monsters in there. Souza with his power, Romero with his explosivity. great fight. But that's really about it in terms of announced fights or upcoming fights that I haven't really spoken about. Yeah, check them out. Let me know what you think. Okay, so on the boxing side of things, the only really major card was Lara versus Castano. I don't really want to talk about any other fights, just about the Lara one. I think what we can take away from this is that Lara's getting up there, and that Jarrett Hurd beat the movement out of him. Like, he's Cuban, he's supposed to be slick. He moved, but apparently not at all that well, like not a normal Lara fight. And look, I have to give the guy his props. People say he's boring, but like, he's been in a war with Jarrett Hurd and now in another tough fight with Castano. He has minerals, he has stones. The guy will sit and trade. Apparently the draw wasn't controversial, so that's great. I don't mind draws, because like sometimes the guys just prepare and they are evenly matched, but I think it's something to look out for in terms of Hurd just really ruining guys, because like I'm not even talking about the fight, I'm talking about the fight before this, but it just makes me more excited to watch Jarrett Hurd's next fight. On the MMA side of things, big card last week. So you had John Jones versus Anthony Smith, clinic by John Jones, but I really like left that fight with a huge excuse me. I really left that fight with a huge admiration for Anthony Smith. John Jones landed an illegal knee in the 4th round. And Anthony Smith would have been well within his rights to just stay down and be like, I can't continue. Because it was a hard knee that was landed illegally. But the guy was just like, no, I'm not here to steal the title, I'm here to win it. And he kept going, so props to him. I have to commend, I think it was Herb Dean. I have to commend the ref on taking 2 points from John. I think it was appropriate. Like, it was an illegal move, but it was an illegal move. I understand why he took 2 points away. I applaud him for that. What I understood really is that there's a lot of confusion because the unified rules of MMA aren't unified. So in California, him having one hand on the ground is not him being down, but in Nevada it was. So work on that, but I think Herb Dean handled that great. So perfect. Woodley versus Usman, I will admit I called that horrendously incorrectly. I really thought Woodley would blast him out in 2 rounds. I'm wrong, or I was wrong. Usman puts on a clinic, takes Woodley to school, out wrestles one of the best wrestlers to ever do it in the welterweight division. Woodley is a guy that's definitely going down in the Hall of Fame. Woodley is a guy that's definitely in the conversation for the greatest welterweights in the UFC at least. But he got taken to school, and I think that's a great performance. And I think Usman, because he's younger, he's still very much in his physical prime. Woodley's, I think, 36 going on 37. I think Usman might be the next big thing. I think he might reign for a long time. So, well done on that win. I can't wait to see who he fights next. I was thinking he'd fight Askren next, but the Robbie Lawler versus Ben Askren fight ended with a lot of controversy. I thought the ref could have stopped it, to be honest. I thought he could have stopped it when Askren got slammed and was being ground and pounded to no end by Robbie. I thought he would. I wouldn't have minded a stoppage there. And I don't think it would have been as controversial. But the way it ended up with the bulldog choke that apparently wasn't really in, and Robbie being awake but also not really letting Herb know that he's awake. I don't know. I think that's probably they're gonna run that one back. So if it's not Askren versus Usman, it's probably gonna be Covington. Oh god, Covington was just the worst during fight week. Just like showing up with a tiny baby megaphone, just being an all-round cunt. Like, just Covington, you're the worst. You're the worst. All the fans hate you, Covington. All of us. And that's about it for the review of the action. Next up is the boxing deep dive. So, on today's boxing deep dive, I want it to be a little less intense, right? um, Boxing isn't just about the politics, it's mostly about the amazing fighters. And most boxing fans will admit, right? Some of them might hate on it, but most of them will admit that Ring Magazine is probably the preeminent source of knowledge when it comes to boxing. It's almost as old as boxing. It's been around for ages. I really love the editor in chief, who's called Douglas Fisher. Guy has a ton of integrity. He explains things in terms of the rankings. He explains the Ring's methodology behind a lot of things, and he answers fan questions a lot. So he's a great guy. So I love Ring Magazine, and when it comes to ranking fighters in any division, you have the sanctioning organizations that kind of do it with an agenda, and then you have everyone's personal list. But a lot of people agree that the best list out there is probably the Ring Magazine list. So I wanted to just go through the top 10 pound for pound according to the Ring, give you my thoughts on the list, give you why those guys are on the list, and then that's about it. Like, not to overwhelm you this week, maybe next week, who knows. Okay, so you have number one pound for pound these days is Vasyl Lomachenko. Vasyl Lomachenko went up to try and win a world title in his second fight, which is crazy. Japanese fighters tend to move up and win world titles decently quickly, but this was basically unheard of for a Western fighter, and he wanted to do it. He wanted to do it actually in his first fight, but his promoter was just like, no, let's do it in your second fight at least. Like, it's crazy. No one's gonna take this fight. He loses his second fight due to a variety of reasons, right? Main one was that the guy came in overweight. The guy also did a lot of dirty boxing, so elbows, pushing, shoving, stuff like that. I think low blows were a part of the equation. But yeah, he loses that fight. He comes back his third fight, beats then unbeaten Gary Russell Jr. for, I believe, the WBC strap in that weight class, and hasn't really looked back. In his last fight, he beat Jorge Linares for the Ring, WBA, and I want to say WBO. I'll probably look stupid because the graphics gonna be right here, but he beat him for a bunch of titles. Vasyl Lomachenko has not had 15 fights, and that's the crazy thing about him. Like, he's a 3-weight world champion. He beat a great talent in Linares. He's been smashing people. And the crazy thing is he credits all this to his dancing skills, right? Because what makes him pound for pound is his ability to move around his opponent and around the ring. He started boxing at a really young age, but then his dad took him away from that and forced him to dance for something like 4 to 6 years. And he really credits that with his ability to move right now, and that's really what makes him special. Like, the guy, they call him the Matrix because he pops in and out of existence. You have no idea where the hell he is. And his movement is so frustrating that he's made people quit because they're like, I just keep getting hit in the face. I don't know where this guy is. So I don't want to fight anymore. And that's happened like 5 straight times. But yeah, no, Vasyl Lomachenko, definitely a guy to watch. Personally, I would have ranked him number 2, but I won't argue with this one. The actual number 2 on the Ring list is my personal number 1, Terrence Bud Crawford. He is a beautiful boxer to watch because he is a switch hitter. That means that he'll put his left foot forward and then switch and put his right foot forward. So he might jab with his left or he might jab with his right, depending on where his feet are. He's constantly switching stances to confuse people, and when he thinks you're hurt, he goes in for the kill. And he has amazing shot selection. He has amazing precision. He's a great fighter. I really enjoy watching him fight. I like to use his tape when I try and introduce someone to the fight game, like just tape of him fighting, because he does it so well. He's currently the WBO champ at welterweight. He used to be the undisputed champ at junior welterweight. He moved up because welterweight is really where the money is. But honestly, there's a problem with him getting a lot of the bigger fights at welterweight just because of the politics that I spoke about in previous episodes. But yeah, no, I think he's a pretty great fighter, and I hope that they bridge the political divide to get him those fights, because I really want him to face off against someone like Errol Spence or Keith Thurman or someone like that, right? I want him to prove himself as being the best. Now, number 3 is probably the one I have the most problem with, right? Number 3 is Canelo Alvarez, and I don't have a problem with him being on the list. I do have a problem with him being ranked number 3. My main issue is that I don't think he won his last fight. Or not his last fight at middleweight, I should say. Because his last fight, he won a third round knockout against Rocky Fielding at super middleweight because he didn't want to make weight, I guess. I don't know. But I didn't think he beat Gennady in his last fight at middleweight. Like, don't get me wrong, the guy is elite. He has elite shot selection, he has elite upper body movement, he has underrated defense. He has a great chin. Like, he lasted 24 rounds with Gennady. Most people would not have like gone that long. If Danny Jacobs was put on his ass, like, Canelo has a granite chin. I really respect Canelo as a fighter. I just don't think he should be ranked this high. Look out for his next fight, though. He's always fun to watch. His next fight is against Daniel Jacobs, who is ranked number 3 at middleweight. So you have the champ at middleweight and the number 3 ranked fighter at middleweight. Next up, it probably would be my personal pick for number 3, is Alexander Usyk. Now, Alexander Usyk is the current undisputed champ at cruiserweight, right? The last person to do that was Evander Holyfield, so that kind of shows you the kind of class that he's in, right? He's cruiserweight has been dominated by Europeans over the last decade or so. So it's no surprise that most of the names that he's beaten are European, but the way he's beaten them is insane because he's basically a blown up version of Vasyl Lomachenko. So he moves around the ring like Vasyl Lomachenko to a degree, but he weighs 200 pounds, right? The thing about him is that he's a road warrior as well, so he's constantly going into his opponent's backyard and he's not allowing hometown favoritism to take these fights away. He's winning so spectacularly that judges that share the nationality of his opponent are just like, shit, we have to give this guy the win. He's a great fighter. I really enjoy him. I think he's done it cruiserweight though. I think he's moving up to heavyweight. I believe the announcement is coming soon. From what I understood is that it's going to be against Kubrat Pulev at some point. So look out for that. That should be a fun fight as well. Number 5. This is my personal favorite, like, active fighter. It was really the first, like, fighter that I became a fan of. It was the first fighter that I watched religiously, like I would stay up for his fights. Gennady Gennadyovich Golovkin, also known as Triple G. Man, I just love watching him fight. He has a piston for a left hand. He has such a beautiful jab. Underrated defense, great ring generalship. He's constantly moving his opponent where he wants them to be or needs them to be. He gets them up on the ropes, goes to the body and just takes them out. Great. I love watching Gennady. I still think he deserved the win over Canelo. I can't wait for him to come back. I'm excited to see what his next fight will be. Next up, we have number 6, Naoya Inoue. I believe that's how you say it. I probably butchered it. Anyway, his nickname is the Monster, and he's probably one of the smaller fighters on this list. They call him the Monster because in 17 fights, he has 17 wins and 15 knockouts, which is kind of unheard of at like the smaller weight classes. Just because it makes sense, right? Smaller guys, less power. But he really is a monster. He's already a 3-division world champ. He's at 118 pounds, so bantamweight, bantamweight. He's in the World Boxing Super Series. I think he's probably going to take down that division. I kind of would have liked him to be at 115 pounds just because I feel like that's a deeper division. But I think he has a lot to bring when it comes to 118. I really think that he's going to smash a lot of those guys. He is definitely exciting to watch. The thing is about him is that there isn't actually that much tape on him, right? Because he gets guys out of there pretty quick. His last fight, I believe it was in the first round, he knocked him out with a 1-2. Like, Jesus, he has power in both hands, and he's good fun. Number 7, I have a lot of issues with, not because of his placement, not because of anything, just because the way he's taken his career. So number 7 is Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia, like, I don't know if you've heard that like cheesy Bruce Lee phrase. Don't fear the man that's practiced 1,000 kicks once. Fear the man that's practiced one kick 1,000 times. He's very much the embodiment of that, right? He 90% of his offense are the first 2 punches that you learn in boxing. It's literally 1, 2. That's his entire offense. But the guy is a 4-division world champ because he's taken the most basic punches in boxing and perfected them. He knows exactly when to throw them. He throws them with malice, and he gets guys out of there because he knows timing, he has speed, and he has power. Why I have a problem with him, I'll get into a bit more later because it has to do with this list. But Mikey Garcia, he's very much just as basic as they come, but perfection. Number 8, remember him, the guy whose name I love to say, Sirisaket Sorong Visai. So why he's on the list, right, is because he beat the former pound for pound number 1. Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez really put the lower weight classes on the map because he was unbeaten in, I want to say, 48 fights before he fought Sorong Visai. The first time they fought to a unanimous decision win for Sorong Visai, I personally scored the fight for Chocolatito, but there was a rematch clause. I was like, okay, they're going to clear it up. It's all good. He comes back, knocks out Chocolatito in the 4th round. He comes back after that performance and then puts on a clinic and takes out Juan Francisco Estrada. And he's taken out 2 of the best guys in that weight class, like, without breaking a sweat. He's huge for that weight class, but he has underrated skills, great shot selection. He's fun to watch just because he has a very brawling, very like intense style. But yeah, he's probably the least technical, I'd say, on this list, but he's up there. Next up, you have number 9, Donnie Nietes. Filipino guy, right? Been around for ages. If you know anything about boxing, right, is that at the lower weight classes, the guys can't hang around for too long. Like their careers are much shorter, just because it's really hard to cut weight. Like, even if you are just a naturally small guy, cutting to 115, 112, 108 pounds, like that's not something that's really feasible for too long. But at 36, still winning, has a great winning streak going on. He's on this list mostly because of consistency, and I definitely agree with that. I think for such a long time, he's been doing so well that he deserves the recognition. Like, that's all I really want to say about Donnie, just because he's earned it. Like, I don't mind. Number 10 is your boy Errol Spence, right? So another welterweight, the second welterweight on the list. He hasn't really fought anyone other than Kell Brook. Kell Brook was at the time rated the number 1 welterweight. But when they fought, he had just moved up in weight, fought Gennady Golovkin, got his eye socket punched in, and then drained himself in his very next fight against Errol Spence, who's a huge welterweight, and got his other eye socket punched in, right? So that's the only name on his ledger. I don't want to take anything away from him. It was a great win, but I don't necessarily agree with him being on this list just because his resume isn't that great. but passes something called the eye test, right? So you can look at a guy and know, okay, I see that this guy has skill. Now, at the end of the day, they have to fight the fights before you crown them like champ or crown them the best or crown them anything like that. But you can definitely see where someone's headed based on the eye test. So going back to that Mikey Garcia thing, Mikey Garcia, in my opinion, should be fighting Vasyl Lomachenko at 135 pounds. I think that fight is amazing. I think that fight puts someone with like really interesting new techniques against someone that's perfected the basic boxing bits. Like, there's so much that goes into that fight that's just so interesting, right? But Mikey Garcia is not doing that. He's moving up 2 weight classes to fight Errol Spence. And I think Errol Spence is going to eat him alive. I don't think this is going to do anything for Errol Spence. Like, it's not going to legitimize him. It's not going to push him anywhere, like, up on this list. Just because Mikey's too small. And if anything, Errol Spence should be fighting Terence Crawford. But it is what it is. I personally would have put AJ at number 10. At least in my personal list, I would have put AJ number 10. Just because he's fought a lot more rated guys. He's fought Klitschko, he's fought Parker, he's fought Brazil, he's fighting Miller, he fought Povetkin. Like, he has at least 5 top 10 guys on his ledger. I think he deserves at least a top 10 spot. But it is what it is. I guess the eye test is a bit more important. Anyway, that's the rings list and my notes. Let me know what your list is. Would love to talk to you guys about it. It's one of the more fun things in boxing is that you can really just make a list of the guys that you think could beat each other if they were the same size. Like, you don't really get that with other sports. But anyway, that's about it for the deep dive this week. So this week, I thought I'd try something a little bit different. I'm going to hit you with an unpopular opinion of mine, right? I don't think it's that unpopular, but it's definitely something that I feel I've gotten pushback when I've tried to bring it up in real life. So I thought I'll throw it out there, see what you guys think. Because they definitely, like, these opinions come from a personal place, but they are something I want to talk about. And really what I want to talk about this week is about the idea of family, right? Because the idea of family is a bizarre one, if you really think about it. Family, at least in the definition that we have in this region, right, ends up being a burden most of the time. It ends up being just something to which you are responsible, right? It ends up being an organization that you signed up to at birth that you never really get to leave, right? And this just could be the way my brain thinks, where I don't like being told what to do. But when it's something that's obligatory, you have to question it. You have to question why it's obligatory. You have to question why this thing, what are the pros and cons, right? You have to do that for everything, even if it's something that supposedly is unquestionable. The other thing that I don't particularly like about family is the fact that it's not a rational thing, right? It really isn't. A lot of it is just built on raw emotion that doesn't always make sense. And a lot of it is negative, right? So I'm gonna just preface the rest of this by saying my core family unit I absolutely adore, right? I love all of them, and it's not something that I feel obliged to do. It's something where I feel it's reciprocal. I feel like there's respect there. I feel like it's people that I would have loved anyway. If the blood wasn't the same, I still would have loved these people anyway, right? But you have other members of like an extended family that you just look at and you're just like, I don't think if we were ever put in the same room that I would ever stand you or want to repeat that unfortunate mistake of being in the same room with you or anything to that effect, right? It's just, but you're still expected to respect and love that person and just be there for them. It's just like, I don't want to. like my definition of family at least is like just like I just said, it's reciprocal. It's something where you feel the value of that relationship, and it's something where it's just like at the end of the day, you know that that person will stick up for you, and you know that you would return the favor, right? Other than that, it's not family. And my definition of family really falls not just on my like the core six. It falls on a lot of people, and a lot of people I would definitely say are family to me. Like I have a bunch of guys that like are my bros. I don't mean that in a stupid way. I just don't know how to emote. And a bunch of girls were just like, "Fuck, you're my sis. I love you. It's great." But then you get to the people that are related to you by blood, and you're just like, "You're an asshole, and I don't like you, and you keep accusing me of these shitty things." And go fuck yourself. So yeah, that's really the unpopular opinion. I kind of just want to know where everyone stands, right? I feel like the way I'm approaching it makes sense. Well, definitely, because it's the way I'm approaching it, and that's how I think. But I know a lot of people would argue with me, just like, "Oh no, traditional family values they hold a lot of value for the community as a whole. It makes you stronger as a unit. It protects, like it's a lot of the arguments for always make me think of the herd mentality, and it's just like, why do I need this huge thing to be a part of when I could have this smaller thing that makes more sense and makes me feel better, right? Like it's much more about self-actualization with me than it is about like pride or prejudice or anything like that. So that's really about it. That's all I really wanted to talk about. Would love to know your thoughts. Anyway, guys, that's all I really wanted to say this week. Hope it wasn't too much. Yeah, let me know what you think again. I love that you guys are still watching it. I'm like, even if you weren't, I'd probably still be. Whoa, excuse me. Even if you weren't watching it, I probably still would be doing it. I don't know. It's fun. Yeah, but let me know what you think. Much love. See you next week, I guess.